أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أمسينا وأمسى الملك لله والحمد لله لا شريك له لا إله إلا هو إليه المصير اللهم أمسى بنا من نعمة وبأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك فلك الحمد ولك الشكر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Anybody remembers where we stopped? Did we finish Abu Bakr as-Siddiq? Not exactly actually. Wallahi, but subhanallah, just what a great honor, wallahi, to talk about these great people. Subhanallah, there's no one next to the prophets that is greater than the Sahaba of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. They established the religion. Now we're talking about everything actually is already presented to us. Everything was already established. So we're not starting everything, but they started everything from zero, from scratch, alayhim radwanillah. So what a great honor to be the first one to start something that people will benefit from then actually until the end of the times. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. That's why wallahi, just talking about them is the greatest honor. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us their company on the day of judgment, just because we love them. Because the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam did tell us that يُحْشَرُ الْمَرْءُ مَعْ مَنْ أَحَبَّ, that the person will be resurrected with those that he loves. So that's why we hope that loving them will earn us a place actually next to them. Because there's nothing that anybody actually can do to match what they did. I mean, who can match what... I'm not going to talk about the great Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman and Ali, but who can match actually what Al-Muqdad did? Who can match what Salman al-Farisi did? What Khadija did? What Aisha did? All of these great people, nobody actually can match what they did. That's why we hope and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just by loving them, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us their company on the day of judgment. Subhanallah, there's one thing really beautiful by Omar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, that he said that probably will be very relevant to what we're talking about today, to what's happening today, the attack on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. I'm not going to get into a discussion about that. I mean, the topic has already, I'm sure, was discussed in the khutbah and in some of the other meetings. But he said that kill the falsehood by ignoring it. If you want to kill the falsehood, ignore it. He says, uqtulu, what did he say? Well, I forgot the Arabic term, but he said basically that destroy or kill the falsehood by being quiet about it, by ignoring it. And he says, وَلَا تُثَرْثِرُوا عَنْهُ فَيَنْتَبِهِ الشَّامِتُونَ, and do not talk too much about it, because some of the haters will pay attention to it. And subhanAllah, if you look back at what Salman Rushdie some years ago, some of you probably were not even born by then, he wrote, of course, this, excuse me for the expression, a trashy piece of literature. That's what it was. And nobody would have paid any attention to it had it not been for some of the reaction by some of the Muslims, which basically made his book a huge bestseller and made him himself basically a hero or a victim of freedom of speech. But subhanAllah, sometimes ignoring certain things will be the best way to deal with it, because you have some people, some opportunists, some trash diggers that will wait for an opportunity like that to basically build the attack, like what Pat Robertson did, Pat Hatred Robertson did, basically grabbing an opportunity to renew his attack against Islam and against the Muslims. But subhanAllah, just thought about this expression of Umar alayhi radwanillah, where he said basically that اقتلوا الباطل بالسكوت عنه, that basically destroy or kill the falsehood by being quiet about it, by ignoring it. And he says, وَلَا تُثَرْثِرُوا فِيهِ فَيَنْتَبِهِ الشَّامِتُونَ, that people will pay attention to it. So anyway, back to the Khilafah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. Now we're getting to the end. Now, while the conquests were going on actually in Iraq against the Persian empires, something else actually what happened in the Roman Empire, which is toward the west of that area, which is of course mostly in the Levantine area, Syria, Jordan, Damascus, Palestine, Lebanon, and that whole region. And the first interaction of the Muslims basically with the Romans happened around the 6th or the 7th year after the migration, when the Prophet ﷺ, if you remember, he sent the message to Herakl, to the Hercules, the leader of the Romans, and he said to him basically, Aslim taslam, yu'tik Allahu ajraka marratayn, that if you become Muslim, Allah will give you twice the reward. If you do not, then you bear the sin of your own people. And Herakl basically did not send a clear message to the Prophet. Basically he said, okay, I'm a believer, but I'm not going to do anything. And the Prophet basically, he said that this person was a liar. كَذَبَ عَدُوُ اللَّهِ. And what happened, the Prophet ﷺ also sent a message to the ally of the Romans, which were the Ghassasina, which were also Christians with the leadership of Al-Harith ibn Shumar al-Ghassani. And that person was so arrogant that he basically killed the messenger of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ, basically as an act of revenge for killing the messenger of the Prophet to them ﷺ, then he sent the famous army of Zayd ibn Haritha, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, and Abdullah ibn Rawaha in the famous incidents of Mu'tah, Ghazwat Mu'tah, the expedition of Mu'tah, where Khalid ibn al-Walid alayhi came into prominence for the first time. When the three Sahaba, these three great Sahaba were killed, then of course the leadership was given to Khalid ibn al-Walid, and he was able basically to save the army. And it was about 200,000 of the people of Ghassan and their allies and the Romans, and the Muslims were between 3,000 and 4,000. So that was the first physical interaction with the Romans. The Prophet ﷺ, after what they did, he basically decided to seek revenge from that, or for that instance, especially knowing that the Romans were planning an attack on the Muslims. Hence the conquest, or the Ghazwat Tabuk, that was in the 9th year after the migration, and which was the last Ghazwa that the Prophet ﷺ participated in. And the Prophet ﷺ went to Tabuk, and he stopped in a place called Ayla, and the leader of that place, he was a Christian, his name is Yohanna, John. He basically agreed to have a treaty with the Prophet ﷺ, with the Muslims, that basically for a mutual protection and protecting the back of the Muslims. When Hercules heard of Yohanna signing that treaty with the Muslims, basically he killed him and he crucified him in his own place, in his own country. Again, declaring clearly an attack against the Muslims. And then the year of the death of the Prophet ﷺ, like we discussed, the Prophet ﷺ had prepared the great army of Usama ibn Zayd. Usama ibn Zayd basically to seek revenge for the killing of his father Zayd ibn Haritha in Mu'tah. And he sent him to Quda'a, and Usama ibn Zayd basically he went there and he was able to defeat Quda'a, and he went back as a victorious in the beginning of the Khilafah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Again, try to connect the different events leading to what's happening later on. Then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanullah prepared a small army under the leadership of Khalid ibn Sa'id ibn al-As, and he sent it to the area of Syria. And that army basically camped in the southern part of Syria called Tayma. And the people of Tayma agreed to pay the jizya for the Muslims, so no fighting was to happen. And the instructions of Abu Bakr alayhi ridwanullah was no fighting happens unless you were attacked. He was concerned about preparing basically the Muslims and for the things that are more significant to come. Then when Hiraql, the Hercules, the leader of the Romans, heard of what happened, then he prepared a huge army to basically attack Khalid ibn Sa'id ibn al-As, and it was a huge army basically. And then Khalid, and he also called upon their allies, the local allies. Khalid alayhi ridwanullah, when he heard of that, basically he attacked the people before they attack him, and all of that was aborted. So Hercules now was becoming more and more aware, or more and more concerned about the increasing strength of the Muslims and the increasing power and that they're getting. And he started basically being concerned about the area that was ruled by the Romans, because keep in mind, all the Levantine area and north was, and even west actually, northern Africa, was ruled by the Roman Empire. I mean, the whole Mediterranean was like a Roman basin. Everything around that was ruled by the Roman. So he was concerned about that. Meanwhile, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanullah, the planning kept on going on. SubhanAllah, remember what we said about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Normally when you hear about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the first thing that comes to mind is a very soft-hearted person, someone that cries very easily. But subhanAllah, sometimes the critical situations shows the true nature of the great people. And that's really what happened with Omar ibn Khattab, with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanullah. People used to think he was the softer one. But then he turned out to be actually even much stronger than Omar himself. Like we saw in the event, especially related to the Ridda, to the apostasy, and how even with few people, he was able basically to bring people back into the reign of Islam. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanullah started basically calling upon support among the Muslims, calling for support among the Muslims, and the forces started coming toward him from Yemen. Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, with the forces, Amr ibn al-As, and the people started coming toward him. And then he went specifically to Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As was appointed actually by Abu Bakr as-Siddiq to be in charge of distributing the zakat money. He had a great mind. He was known to have really an amazing mind, Amr ibn al-As alayhi ridwanillah. And then he told him that I chose you to do something which is better than what you're doing. Something that the Prophet ﷺ himself has chosen you for, which is to go basically and lead the expeditions. To lead the expeditions. And unless you love to do what you're doing now, is more beloved to you. Then Amr ibn al-As told him that I am one of the arrows of Islam. You can throw whichever arrow you want, and I will, whichever direction you want, you can throw me in there and I will obey you in whatever you decide. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanillah prepared 4 great armies. The first one under the leadership of Amr ibn al-As alayhi ridwanillah, and he sent that army to Palestine, and that army camped in the southern part of Palestine. The second army is by Shurahbil ibn Hasana, and that he sent it to Jordan, and it was able to reach Jordan. The third army by Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan, and he sent it to the Balqa, also in Bilad al-Sham, and it was able basically to stay in there. The fourth army, the great Abu Ubaidah Amr ibn al-Jarrah, Aminu Hadhi al-Ummah, the trustworthy of this Ummah, he sent him to Hims, and he actually camped in a place called Al-Jabiya in Julan. The total number of these 4 armies were 21,000 soldiers. So it's a big number. It's a big number. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanillah, every time he sends an army, he would go after them walking, basically to give them advice and give them bid farewell to them. And that's how he was alayhi ridwanillah. Now the news actually reached all the way to Hercules of the Romans. And he was concerned. I mean, the thousands are now marching, and it was known that when it comes to the Muslims, basically the numbers are of less important. I mean, he had experienced the great battle of Mu'tah, 200,000 Romans and Ghassasina versus 3,000 or 4,000 Muslims, and they were not able to defeat them. So that's why when he hears 21,000, that's a huge number. He was really immensely concerned. So that's why he consulted with the Roman leaders, and he told them that what I suggest to you is to have a negotiation with the Muslims and give them half of the land that we rule in Bilad al-Sham. So we give them half, this way they stop. They said, no, we will not accept that. He said to them, if you don't give them half, eventually they will take the whole, and they will take half of what we have. Eventually, half beyond that. They refused. That's when actually he accepted. Basically, he built a huge army of 240,000, and he sent it actually to the great place of what? What place? What are we talking about? Leading to what? What? Al-Yarmouk, the great place, a great battle of Al-Yarmouk. And not only that, but Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanillah, then he immediately sent to Khalid ibn al-Walid, the great sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who was already in Iraq, and he asked him to go and then join the armies of Bilad al-Sham. And Khalid ibn al-Walid alayhi ridwanillah, he had about 15,000. There were 2 actually armies. There was his army as well as the other army, which was led by Al-Muthanna ibn Harith al-Shaybani, that stayed in Iraq. And Khalid ibn Walid alayhi ridwanillah was to take half the army, which was 15,000, and off toward now to join the Muslim armies already actually, excuse me, in the Yarmouk. But the question is, how would he move there? The distance is very far, and normally the trip or the journey over there takes about a month. And a month will be too long. So if he were to wait for a month, or if he were to get there in a month, then the armies of the Muslims would already actually be defeated and everything would already be done. That's why he asked. And he took this great audacious actually step of crossing the desert. Normally when people basically go there, they will take, a normal area, with vegetations, with normal route, and that will take a month. But of course, if he were to cross the desert directly, take a shortcut, he can do it in a much shorter period of time. But the only concern would be water. That's the only concern. The only thing is that they might run out of water. They can tolerate hunger, they can eat something, but water would be the only concern. That's when he came up with a great trick, with something amazing. What he decided to do is half of the camels that they had, that were actually designated to eat. So these camels that they designated to slaughter and eat, what he did, he fed them a lot of plants and a lot of salt. A lot of salt. A lot of salt. So these camels became very thirsty. And he let them go over water. So they drank to the fullest an immense amount of water. And what he did, he tied their mouths. He tied their mouths so they will not basically let anything out. And he took these camels and off toward Al-Yarmouk. And what he decided to do, and on the other camels, the other halves, he carried some of the water. The water that they were carrying would be for the soldiers themselves. But the water that was in the camels, whenever it was time for them to eat any of the camels, they would slaughter these camels, and the immense amount of water that they have inside, they will use it to drink for the other camels to drink. So in other words, they carried the water for the other camels inside some of the other camels. And with that, he was able to cut his load in more than half. And then off, he crossed the desert in 5 days. The whole trip that was supposed to take 1 month, he was able to cross it in 5 days, and he was able to join the army of the Muslims when the Battle of Al-Yarmouk was already starting. We'll come back to the Battle of Al-Yarmouk, inshallah, after we discuss a few things. Meanwhile, what was happening in Medina? Something very significant. In Medina, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanullah was becoming increasingly sick, increasingly ill. And he was concerned that if he does not choose a successor, that the Muslims will not fight, but he would be concerned that the less fit or the most fit people will shy away from the leadership. And this was the approach of the Sahaba alayhim ridwanullah. They would never look for leadership. They would not seek leadership. That's why Abu Bakr was almost forced to do it. And the other Sahaba as well. You know, all the great four, you know, Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman and Ali, they were almost like pushed to get it. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanullah was concerned that if he leave it for the people to decide, that you're going to have basically some people who will be seeking the leadership coming to prominence, and the people that were most fit will shy away from the leadership. That's why he consulted the Sahaba alayhim ridwanullah, and he said to them, he consulted to them, and he said to them that, what do you think I should do? You know, he wanted to consult with them. I would like to appoint somebody. And they told him that basically they started praising Umar, including Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, and they said something really amazed about him. He asked him, what do you think of Umar? You know, Umar was known to be great. Everybody knew how great Umar was. But Uthman ibn Affan told him that whatever you think of him, he's greater than that. Whatever you think of him, he's greater than that. Ali told him that his inside matches his outside. They told him his inside is even greater than his outside. Subhanallah, that's something really amazing. I mean, all of us are normally the opposite. We always have something to hide. People think of us more, you know, than we are. But Umar alayhi ridwanullah, his inside, his reality is better than what people actually see of him. That's when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanullah insisted on Umar actually being his successor. Umar radiallahu anhu, of course, وَمَا أَدْرَكَ مُ Umar, the great Umar alayhi ridwanullah. Umar, one of the greatest giants, I don't want to say in the history of Islam, but one of the greatest giants in history, period. There's nobody like Umar alayhi ridwanullah. His name, of course, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam called him Al-Faruq, the Faruq, because he's the one that basically separates the truth from the falsehood, alayhi ridwanullah. Of course, his name is Umar ibn al-Khattab. Umar ibn al-Khattab, ibn Nufayl, ibn Abd al-Uzza, ibn Rabah, ibn Abdullah ibn Furut, ibn Zarah, ibn Adi ibn Ka'b, ibn Lu'ay, ibn Ghalib ibn Fihr from Quraysh. So he connects with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam from Ka'b ibn Lu'ay. So he has a connection back with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Of course, his nickname was what? What was his nickname? Abu what? What? Not Abu Asad, but the meaning is correct. He was nicknamed Abu Hafs. Why Abu Hafs? Because of course his daughter was Hafsa radiallahu anha. Abu Hafs, you know, alayhi ridwanullah. And Al-Hafs actually is a small lion, is a lion cub. That's what he was known alayhi ridwanullah. Again, the Prophet nicknamed him Al-Faruq. From the moment he became Muslim, of course, he was tough against the falsehood. He was tough against the Muslims before Islam. That's when the Prophet ﷺ basically, he used to make dua, Allahumma a'izz al-Islam bi ahad al-Umarayn, that Ya Allah give dignity to Islam through one of the two Umars. Omar ibn Khattab, and who was the other one? Amr ibn Hisham, Abu Jahl, Abu al-Hakam, nicknamed Abu al-Hakam. But so he was making dua because these people were strong, were very strong in Mecca. So the Prophet was hoping, he says that, Ya Allah, by the more beloved one of the two. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, chose Umar ibn Khattab alayhi ridwanillah. What happened, of course, is that there was a halaqah, so to speak, of Khattab ibn al-Arat, and the sister of Umar ibn Khattab, Fatima, and her husband, Sa'id. When the people were migrating out of, just reviewing the story, I think it will be of benefit to fit in there. As some of them were leaving, actually, the Muslims during the oppression, we're talking now about the Mecca period, the early period, were leaving and fleeing the torture and the oppression toward Abyssinia. Then one man, his name is, Abdullah, with his mother, they were trying to sneak out. And he told her, that make sure that nobody sees you. And as he was leaving, of course, who sees his mother? Umar ibn Khattab. Ila ayna ya Umar? Where are you going? Ya Abdullah. I'm sorry, where are you going, Ya Abdullah? Where are you going? And she said, just let us go. All we ask is for us to be free to worship however we want. So she started imploring him, and he felt some pity toward her, and he said to her, that may Allah be with you. So as she met her son later on, did anybody see you? She said, Umar. That's the one everybody was afraid of, because he was very tough against the Muslims before he became Muslim. And she said, yes. And he said to me, may Allah be with you. And he said to her, do you have hope that he might be Muslim? That he might become Muslim? Because he was tender with her. And she said, yes, maybe. And he says, Wallahi, the donkey of Al-Khattab, which is the father of Umar, might become a Muslim before Umar himself. So it's impossible for Umar to become Muslim. Umar became very angry when he saw the division and the fighting inside Mecca. And he started thinking, who was the one behind that? Of course, Muhammad. So he decided to take punishment from Muhammad, to kill Muhammad, even if it means himself being killed in revenge. So he grabs his sword and he went looking for Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad used to meet in Dar al-Arqam. And Umar did not know that he was meeting in Dar al-Arqam, but he was in that area. Then one of the Sahaba alayhi ridwanillah saw Umar in that area, and he thought that Umar knew where the Prophet was. And this was Na'im ibn Mas'ud. And he told him that, where are you going, Ya Umar? He told him that, basically, I'm going to go kill Muhammad for what he did. So he wanted to slow him down, and he said, what about your own sister, Fatima? He says, Awa saba'at? Did she become a kafir, basically, change her religion? And he says, yeah, go check her out, And he goes in there. And at that time, again, like I said, they were reading from Surah Taha, the beautiful Surah Taha. And he hears from outside something being recited. Of course, inside was Fatima, her husband, and Khattab ibn al-Arat. Then he knocks on the door. Who's there? Of course, they know that it was Umar. So Khattab ibn al-Arat goes into hiding somewhere in the house. He opens the house. What was that I was hearing? She did not say anything, And then he insisted on her, and he told her, Awasabati, did you become a kafir? She said, Bal aslamna, I became a Muslim. So he grabs her and he hit her, and she falls on the floor, and then blood comes out of her ear. Her husband tries to defend her, but of course Umar, who can face Umar? Then he also knocks him down, and they're both on the floor. Then he looks at his sister, his own sister, and he feels tenderness toward her. What have I done? So he tries basically to console her and then basically lift her up. She rejects him. And he said, what is it that you were reading? And she did not respond. And he insisted on her. He says, give it to me. I will not do anything to it. I will not harm that. And she told him, she brings it out and she tells him, this is the book of Allah and you are kafir najis. Subhanallah. In that situation, weak and bleeding, but look at the strength of the Muslim. She said, I will not give it to you. You are kafir and you are najis. How can I give it to you? Go and clean yourself. He goes and he cleans himself and he comes back. And he started reading. These beautiful verses of Quran. And it had a direct impact on his heart. And he said to her, this is so beautiful. How can I see Muhammad? He wanted to meet Muhammad, but now for a different reason. Then Khabbab ibn al-Arat, who was hiding, comes out. Of course, and he says, you will find him in Dar al-Arqam. So he goes there into Dar al-Arqam. Meanwhile, Na'im has already warned the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba inside. So they were ready for Umar coming in. And they see Umar coming and knocking on the door, the same Umar with the same clothing, the same sword, and they thought he was coming for that evil intention. So Hamza radiallahu anhu, he says, Ya Rasulullah, let him come in. If he wants evil, we will kill him with his own sword. And the Prophet ﷺ asked him also go inside. So let me deal with him by myself. And he opens the door. The Prophet opens the door. As soon as he opens the door, Umar comes in. The Prophet hits him on his chest. And Umar falls down. And the Prophet tells him, Ya Umar, when will you become a Muslim? What are you waiting for? A lightning that will hit you. And then Umar says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa annaka Rasulullah. I testify that there is no God but Allah and you are the messenger of Allah. Then all the Sahaba inside started shouting, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Then Umar ibn Khattab alayhi radwanullah, of course, would never keep his Islam secret. That's why the story was narrated by his son, Abdullah ibn Umar. They said that he went around asking, who in Mecca is the person that spreads rumor the fastest? They told him, this person, Jamil ibn Muammir. And he said, then he went to Jamil ibn Muammir and he said to him, he says, Ya Jamil, haven't you heard what? That I testify that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. Abdullah ibn Umar said, Wallah, he didn't let him finish. He stood, and he went and he started telling people about it. And he went, of course, who's the biggest enemy of the Prophet? Abu Jahl, Amr ibn Hisham. So he knocks on the door of Amr ibn Hisham, who was, of course, a beloved ally of Umar. And when he opens the door, he was happy. Marhaban bika ya ibn akhi. My nephew, he was related to him. Welcome. And he told them, Ya Abul Hakam, haven't you heard what? That I bear witness that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. So he slams the door in his face and he says, Tabban laka sa'ir al-yawm. May you perish for the rest of the day. And Umar alayhi radwanullah, of course, people started ganging around him, trying to beat him and subdue him. But of course they could not. He said, then they started basically trying to attack him. And then he grabbed Utbah ibn Rabi'ah and he sat on him. And he put his fingers by his eyes. If you don't let them leave, I will poke your eyes. And then of course, they left him. So that's why nobody could talk to Umar alayhi radwanullah. Umar alayhi radwanullah, of course, from the moment he became Muslim, he became basically the greatest or one of the greatest assets of Islam. As the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam actually has indicated. Just to look at, just give me 1 second to get with my notes. One moment. He says that he was born actually 13 years before the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So he was 13 years younger than the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. His mother, her name was Khantama bint Hashim ibn al-Mughira al-Makhzumiyya. So that's why she was the cousin of Khalid ibn al-Walid. So he was related to Khalid ibn al-Walid. He was described as being very tall, him and Khalid ibn al-Walid alayhi radwanullah, that whenever they walk among people, they would stand out. Very tall alayhi radwanullah. He was very big and strongly built. So he was really strongly built. And he had an immense charisma. He was known to have actually a whiter skin that actually is more toward the reddish side. That when he walks really fast and everybody recognizes him. Once Shifa bint Abdullah, that he appointed basically as the judge of the market when he became Amir al-Mu'mineen, she found some people basically walking in the streets of Medina, dragging their feet. You know how some people walk, this miskeen person walking by. And she said, who are these people? They said, these are zuhadun nusak, people that are zahid, ascetic people that are, very worship and then soft-hearted. And she said to him, Wallahi, I saw Umar. When he speaks, everybody hears him. When he walks, he would walk very firmly. When he hit somebody, he would inflict pain. And she said, and truly he was zahid and they are not. It is not in the appearances. That's why once Umar alayhi radwanullah enters the masjid and he found a man praying with his neck bent way down. Too much, And then he grabbed his stick And he says, Ya sahibul raqaba, at-taqwa ha huna. He says, Mr. Bent neck, taqwa is in the heart, not in the neck. So it is not how low you bend your neck. And once he found a person, like I said, dragging his feet into the masjid, and he says, hey, you're bringing humiliation to our deen. Walk firmly, walk straight. Don't do something like that. So Umar alayhi ridwanillah, he was known for his strength and for his softness at the same time, which is a unique combination. It is easy to be strong or tough all the way, or to be lenient all the way. But to achieve this balance is something unique. That's why, people like, especially the brothers, they like Umar and the strictness of Umar. And everybody wants to be like Umar. But here you cannot be as strict as Umar unless you have the justice of Umar. Because the strictness of Umar was controlled by his justice. If you don't have his justice, don't try to emulate his strictness, alayhi ridwanillah. He was strong when it's called for, and he was basically lenient and then soft when it was called for. That's why there's a famous story about his wife, alayhi ridwanillah, that once somebody donated some perfume to the treasury, to Bayt al-Mal, to the treasury of the Muslims. And of course, whenever he receives anything, that was to be decided or distributed among the Muslims. But that perfume was difficult to distribute. So what he decided to do, basically, is to sell it. To sell it and then to bring the money back to the treasury of the Muslims. So he asked his wife to help him in that. She would pour the perfume in small bottles, and they would sell the bottles, and then after that, of course, the money goes to the treasury of the Muslims. But as she was pouring it in the small bottles, then, of course, it was unavoidable, it was inevitable that some of it got on her finger, So she would wipe, it's already on her finger, she wipes her khimar with it, her head cover with it. And at the end of the day, Umar alayhi ridwanillah comes home and he smells perfume. MashaAllah. Something de Paris. I didn't buy you that. Where did that come from, the perfume? And she told him, I was pouring it and, basically it got on my finger. And he said, this is the money of the Muslims. No, by Allah, I will not allow that to happen. So he grabs the khimar and started washing it and smelling it until it was completely gone. Now a person will say, well, it's already in there. Yeah, but for others that would smell it on the wife of Umar, what are they going to think? That basically she took it like that. But at the same time, look at Umar somewhere else. A man, when he was Amir al-Mu'mineen, had a problem with his wife. His wife used to talk bad to him. So that man goes to complain to Umar, of course. Whenever you have a problem, take it to Umar. And he goes and he knocks on the door of Umar. And after he knocks on the door of Umar, he overhears from outside the wife of Umar. Maybe he's talking in a way that it may not be too appropriate to Umar, one of his wives. So he decides to leave. I'm coming, for help. He's in a worse situation. So he leaves. As he was leaving, then Umar opens the door. Who knocks? It was me. What do you want? And he said, I was coming to you for some help, but I found you in a situation worse than mine. And Umar told him, he said, shouldn't we be patient with them? They support, they help, they raise the kids, they do this and they do that. Shouldn't we be patient with them? That's why here was Umar when it has to do with the rights of Allah. Non-compromising, but if it has to do with his own right, he would give in. Umar was not to be intimidated by anybody. No man, no woman. Nobody intimidates Umar, alayhi ridwanillah. He was giving in willingly, out of his own mercy, alayhi ridwanillah. That's why he had this balance. The strictness and the toughness, but yet the soft heart. On the return from Al-Qadisiyah, a man, I don't know if it's Qadisiyah or another one, but anyway, a man came back to Medina to give certain news to Umar ibn Khattab, alayhi ridwanillah. And it was at night, so he thought, well, I'll pray 2 rak'ahs in the masjid. And in the morning, I'll look for Umar. He didn't know who, in the morning, I'll go look for Umar, and I will give him the news. And he said, I went to the masjid, and I found a man crying bitterly. So I thought, I'll go, and tell him something that will lift his morale, basically, give him strength, the mercy of Allah, hope in Allah. And he said, and I go there, and I found out Umar himself. It was Umar himself, subhanallah. That's how soft he was, while as strong or as strict as he was, alayhi ridwanillah. Of course, Umar, alayhi ridwanillah, he was known to be a left-handed, actually ambidextrous. So he used both hands. He was known to have the ability to use both hands, alayhi ridwanillah. He was bald in the front, but had some hair in the back. And he had he said that his mustache used to be actually long on the side. He used to leave them actually long on the side. Whenever something basically concerns him, he would start basically, in a way, doing this with his mustache, alayhi ridwanullah. And they said that of course, he had many children. Of course, the most famous of his children were whom? Who? Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, the great Abdullah ibn Umar, one of the greatest scholars among the Sahaba alayhi ridwanullah, and of course his daughter Hafsa, who was the wife of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. There's an interesting thing about Hafsa. Of Hafsa, of course, she became a widow. Her husband died, and Umar ibn Khattab alayhi ridwanullah was started looking for a husband for her. And of course he went first to Abu Bakr Siddiq. Abu Bakr Siddiq did not accept. Why? Because he heard the Prophet saying that the Prophet was thinking about Hafsa to himself. He went to Uthman, and Uthman refused. Yeah, he didn't like her. He did not like, for a legitimate reason. He did not like her, so Umar was upset. And Uthman, was already a widower. His first wife, Ruqayya, had died. So anyway, Umar thought that I will give him Hafsa, alayhi ridwanullah. So he went to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, almost like complaining with sadness that, Ya Rasulullah, I offered my daughter to Uthman and he did not accept. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said to him that Uthman will marry someone better than Hafsa. Who was that? Kulthum, the daughter of the Prophet. And he said, and Hafsa will marry somebody better than Uthman. Who was that? The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Of course, she was the great al-Mu'mineen alayhi ridwanullah, Hafsa. But he had other children, of course, like Abdul Rahman, who was the older, Abdul Rahman al-Akbar, Abdul Rahman al-Awsat, and Abdul Rahman al-Asghar. So he called three of his sons Abdul Rahman. The major, the middle, and the minor, so to speak, Abdul Rahman. Like junior, senior, or something like that. He had three Abdul Rahman. He had Ubaidullah, who was killed in the Battle of Siffin. He had Fatima. He had Asim. And Asim was the grandfather of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. What happened, of course, the story of Umar, he was walking in the streets of, when he was Amir al-Mu'mineen, the streets of Medina, and he overheard a conversation between a mother and her daughter. Basically, the mother said, why don't you mix the milk with some water, nobody sees us, we can go sell it, and get more money. And the daughter said, but Umar said we cannot do it, we should not do it. And the mother said, well, Umar cannot see it. The daughter says, well, but the Lord of Umar sees us. So Umar, he overheard that, and he thought so well of that daughter, and he considered her for his own son, Asim radiallahu anhu. That's when, after that, the next day he went basically and he sought her for engagement to his son, Asim. And of course, the grandchild was the great Umar ibn Abdul Aziz alayhi ridwanullah. He married 3 times in Jahiliyyah, and in Islam, after some of them died. One of the, of course, more famous of his wives, which is not known to many, was Kulthum. Who was Kulthum? Not the daughter of the Prophet. The daughter of Ali and Fatima. Umar ibn Khattab married the daughter of Ali, radiallahu anhu. That's how much they used to love each other. There's no enmity among them. They used to love each other, and Umar alayhi ridwanullah approached Ali for him to marry his daughter, Kulthum, the daughter of Ali and Fatima, and she gave him, some children. And he had actually went to the masjid and he said to the companions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the honor of being related to the Prophet from both sides. That his daughter was married to the Prophet and he actually married one of the family members of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. She gave him Zayd and Ruqayya, and then she died, of course. He became known as Amir al-Mu'mineen. Of course, Abu Bakr Siddiq was known as what? What was the title of Abu Bakr? No, we're not Siddiq, I'm seeing after the death of the Prophet. Khalifat Rasulillah, the successor of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So they started thinking that what should we call Umar ibn Khattab? Khalifati Rasulillah. The successor of the successor. What if you have like 4 leaders after that? Khalifati Rasulillah. It becomes complicated. That's why actually once the Wali of Iraq actually sent 2 men basically to meet with Omar alayhi ridwanillah. Those were Labid ibn Umar and Ali ibn Hatim. And when they entered, and then they saw Amr ibn al-As, they told him, where is Amir al-Mu'mineen? Where is the Amir of the believers? He just said it like that as a word, Amir al-Mu'mineen. And they thought, wallahi, this is it. That man found it. And they told Omar ibn Khattab alayhi ridwanillah. First he didn't like it. Umar didn't like any something like that. It's too much for me. And they told him, but we are the mu'mineen, and you are our Amir, so you are Amir al-Mu'mineen. That's when actually the Khalifa started being called Amir al-Mu'mineen radiallahu anhu. He was very strict, like I said. He was known to be very strict, and people were afraid of that. People were afraid of that. But of course, with justice. That's why once, alayhi ridwanillah, he was walking in the streets with some of the Sahaba behind him, and he looked back, and they felt terrified. He was so charismatic, such a presence. So one of them said, "Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you filled our heart with fear." And he said, "Is it because I'm unjust or unfair to you?" They said, "No." He said, "Then may Allah increase the fear in your heart from me, since I'm doing it justly, so to speak." They said that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanillah, of course, he was known for his softness. But again, just like the strength of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did not show up until he became the Khalifa, the softness of Umar did not really fully show up until he became Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he said that alayhi ridwanillah. Inshallah, we'll talk next week about what happened in the battle, or next time, about what happened in the battle of Al-Yarmouk, and inshallah, and then into the Khilafah of Umar radiallahu anhu. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. If anybody has any questions, otherwise, we'll continue. They said that he was chosen, he was appointed by Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. He was appointed by Abu Bakr as-Siddiq directly as his successor. Which is something very important actually. If you look, when you talk about basically, the Sharia or some aspects of the Sharia, sometimes they're not specific. Which should be left to the people to determine basically what is the best way to implement. That's why sometimes we talk about the Sharia and some of the democracies or man-made laws as if they are basically mutually exclusive. They're not. There's a lot of overlap. That's why there are certain aspects of the Sharia that are specific. Like, for example, matters that will not change through time, like matters of divorce, inheritance, iddah, certain things like that. But there are certain aspects of the Sharia that are called maqasidiyya, that are meant to achieve certain purpose. One of them is how the leader was to be chosen. So if you look, for example, the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, he did not appoint a successor. This is the opinion of the scholars. Now, he did indicate the greatness of Abu Bakr by choosing him to lead the salat when he was sick, and from that the Sahaba took that he was the greatest. But the Prophet did not. Salaam alaikum, sister. Wallah, if you can focus with us a little bit. But the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam did not appoint a successor. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did appoint a successor. Omar ibn Khattab alayhi ridwanillah appointed a body, a council, and those chose a Khalifa. So the question is, which one is the right one? Which one is the right way? And the answer is all of them. Whichever one takes into consideration the benefit of the Muslims and the greatness of the leader and consults with the people will be the best way.
Some people say that Ali
No, it's not Omar. The objection or in some of the narrations was about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq alayhi ridwanillah. They said that Ali ibn Abi Talib basically did not give the bay'ah to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq right away. And here they mentioned the land of Fadak, that Fatima thought it was her right after the... There's a long story that we mentioned when we talk about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq if you go back to the lectures. But actually, according to the historians that screened the text, one of them was Mahmoud Shakir, and one of them was Salabi, by the way. Salabi himself. He said that Ali ibn Abi Talib actually gave the bay'ah directly with everybody else. So he did not even object to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. No, actually he praised when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq asked Ali ibn Abi Talib about Umar, and he knew that he was considering him for the leadership, he praised Umar. Ali ibn Abi Talib praised Umar alayhi ridwanillah. By the way, you're going to find a lot of narrations, and I can tell you some of the, because especially that period basically was documented during the Abbasi period. that especially when we get to the fitna area, the fitna period, with a lot of the narrations, even with some of the great books that actually are weak or even rejected narrations, like Al-Tabari, or Ibn Kathir. But of course, Al-Tabari, basically the good thing that he did is that he cited his references. So anyway, you can go back and verify the credibility of that narrations. And he said that. So he did not go through the screening, and he mentioned that. That's why you can do that. And some of the narrations basically were rejected. That's why you have some scholars that came later on, basically that went back into some of the earlier writings and screened them and rewrote history based on the authentic narrations. One of them was Mahmud Shakir, and one of the great one was As-Salabi. Salabi, and of course Mahmud Shakir, and even Abdul Wahab al-Turairi, that basically screened some of these writings and documented that which is authentic, that befits the greatest of the Sahaba alayhim ridwanullah. And I think history has to be taken from them, from these. Wallahi, first of all, of course, without any doubt, even according to Umar himself, Abu Bakr was the greatest, of course, so that's why the greatest was Abu Bakr. And he even, subhanAllah, even when he was not a Muslim, Umar used to praise Abu Bakr because of his actions and his wisdom. That's why Abu Bakr was able to achieve the balance, and probably in the more perfect way. Again, we're not criticizing Umar. Who dares criticize Umar? Of course, he was great. He was immensely great. But of course, as the Prophet himself said, that basically no man, no person walked on the face of this earth next after a prophet who is greater than Abu Bakr. And Abu Bakr, of course, you can see his wisdom in the event that basically followed his appointment as Khalifa to Rasulullah. All of that shows the balance of his personality. Not just his softness, but his strength. That's why his strength showed up. His strength beyond the strength of Umar alayhi ridwanullah. That's when Umar alayhi ridwanullah told him, Ya Abu Bakr, we don't want to let the army leave basically Medina, we need the protection. And Abu Bakr grabbed him by his beard and he says, Ya Umar, أجبار في الجاهلية خوار في الإسلام. That how can you be courageous in Jahiliyyah and a coward in Islam? Umar, a coward by the standard of Abu Bakr, yes, probably. Of course, by everybody else's standard, of course, he's the most courageous. But that's how great Abu Bakr Siddiq was. That's how great Abu Bakr Siddiq was. But of course, like I said, Umar was unique in that even though he was strong, but he was what the Prophet described. ولكن الشديد الذي يملك نفسه عند الغضب. حديث أبو هريرة in the صحيحين. ليس الشديد بالسرعة ولكن الشديد الذي يملك نفسه عند الغضب. That the strong person, truly strong, is not the one that can knock people down, but the strong person is the one that maintains his control when he's angry. And that was Umar alayhi ridwanullah. That was Umar. And he was courageous enough to correct and to admit his mistakes. So when he does something wrong, he would admit it. He would not say, no, it's difficult for me. No, he would not hesitate. Alayhi ridwanullah. Very unique, subhanallah. Amazing. Wallah, that's why, you cannot help but love him so much. The more you read about him or any of the Sahaba alayhi ridwanullah, it's so easy. They're so easy to love. They're so easy to love. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us their company. Can you imagine, wallahi, sitting with them, sitting with Umar alayhi ridwanullah, sitting with Sumayya, sitting with Aisha, subhanallah. Like, there's a beautiful statement by Hassan al-Banna, rahmatullah alayh. He said, we long for al-Jannah. And he says, we're not longing for al-Jannah for the enjoyment, the beautiful things in there. And he says, but we're longing for the company of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman and Ali. Of course, the Prophet above all of that. Well, think about that. Who would you like to meet in Al-Jannah? We ask Allah to give it to all of us. But who would you love to visit with in Al-Jannah? If you had that option, who would you choose to visit with in Al-Jannah? Well, it's a good thing to ask about. What? Umar will have many people around him, definitely, But of course, any one of them, and all of them probably, why not? All of them. It's good to think about Al-Jannah as such, wallah. It's good to think about it as such. Imagine, reliving, or, now people, of course, when you go watch a movie in IMAX theater, 3D, glasses, surround sound, you feel like you're part of the scene itself, right? And this is the invention of a human being. Imagine what Allah can give in Al-Jannah, if that's what the human being can offer. So imagine, can you imagine, for example, wallahi, I hope to relive the Battle of Al-Yarmouk, for example. To go through the Battle of Al-Yarmouk. Or to hear about Al-Ifk, the false accusation of Aisha radiallahu anha. To visit with her about that. Or to see and witness that event all over again. Imagine, why not? That's why it's good to think about Al-Jannah as such. Wallah, and this is, hopefully it will not, I would repeat that, but hopefully it will not lead into argument. Whatever opinion you have, you can keep to yourself. I think each person is entitled to his own opinion. This is about the series about Omar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, that was produced by the NBC. It's a huge series, 30 basically episodes about the Sahaba. And the thing that of course was objected to is they depict the Sahaba alayhim ridwanillah. So you had a person playing Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, Ali, and the other Sahaba. And some of the famous da'iyas objected to that. And they're entitled to that. It's their own opinion. But some of the great scholars and da'iyas basically approved of it. And that cannot be ignored. So you cannot deal with that as some people sometimes say, whenever you have differences in opinion, as if there's an ijma'. No, you don't have an ijma' in there. The fact that some of the greatest scholars, and I can tell you the greatest in the world today, has approved of it. They read the script and they approved of it. And I'm just to cite some of them: Sheikh al-Qaradawi, Salman al-Ouda, of course, Abdul Wahab al-Trayri, al-Salabi. And these are experts, especially the last two, by the way. They are experts in that specific field in Islamic history. Now, is it haram or is it not haram? Wallahi, here, by the way, there's not a single dalil that says it is haram. All what you have, and the people basically that object to it, what they had is concern, or what is called dawabit. They said, well, if you basically depict a Sahabi, Omar, for example, by a certain actor, and that actor is going to basically play some other role in there, this basically degrade Omar or will associate him with that image. And of course, that's a valid concern. That's a valid concern. That's why there's no action that is perfect. But and I lean more toward, definitely, but I said I enjoyed every minute of it, of the opinion that there's nothing wrong with that. The reason for that, because there's a tremendous attack. Of course, the attack on the Prophet ﷺ now. There are campaigns and attack that defame the Prophet and the Sahaba alayhim ridwanillah. And the people that are doing that, they're not waiting for a fatwa to say whether it's halal or haram. I mean, what if you have, for example, somebody producing a movie that defames Umar alayhi ridwanillah? You can, and that now with the media, of course, available to everybody, everybody's going to watch that, including our youth, who are not sometimes, well, not the youth, even the adult, that may not have the proper background about Umar. You cannot say to them, here, take the book of Mahmoud Shakir, and the series of Mahmoud Shakir on Islamic history, and read about that. Nobody's going to read that. There's an impact to the image. That's why we have to get in there to convey the image or to convey the message in a very strong and impactful way. I mean, I can tell you, for example, the movie Al-Risala, when it came out, the message. Well, it had a tremendous impact. Of course, some people objected. Hamza, how can you do that? Well, it had a tremendous impact. And I can tell you, many Muslims would not have known of Hamza if it wasn't for that. And even Umar ibn Khattab, I can tell you, most people would not have known of Umar ibn Khattab if it wasn't for that. That's why I think a series like that will give life, to this series that we know. I mean, I can tell you, I know these events that were mentioned in there. I've read them many times. I know what was coming next. But wallahi, when I see it, it touches me so deeply. And subhanAllah, wallah, and I heard from many of the youth saying that we love the Sahaba so much that after we watch them, wallahi, we love the Sahaba so much. That's why I think there's tremendous benefit out of that. If a person objects to that, that's fine. I think they're entitled to their own opinion, to agree with it or not. But I can see tremendous benefit of that. But subhanAllah, sometimes we have this, how should I say, this fear of any new step. That always, whenever a new step is taken, people actually are apprehensive about it, and they may accept it later on. And I think, like I said, there's tremendous benefits, especially that the script was approved by credible scholar. So you know that there will not be any things that was introduced wrongly in there. No, but they reviewed the whole script, all of it, from 1 to 30 actually, and they approved of it. That's why I think it is something that will be of benefit. But still, if somebody objects to that, of course we don't attack them or say wallahi they're ignorant and whatnot. They're entitled to their own opinion. Wallahi, of course, that's something, what the violence that's happening is very unfortunate. And not only that, but this is actually feeding, subhanAllah, we have only 4 minutes. You ask a big question. There you go. I'm sure there will be something good. Wallahi, but, I mean, one thing, wallah, I would say, if you love the Prophet ﷺ, and if you really want to defend him, learn about him. Learn about him and give life to his sunnah in your own life. This is the best way to defend him. The best way to defend him is to give life to his sunnah in your own life. Learn about the Prophet ﷺ and then follow his guidance. That's the best way, the best thing you can do. The best thing you can do. And the other specific, I'm sure, Sheikh Muhammad must have mentioned something really very beneficial. I haven't heard the khutbah, but I'm sure, there's something really good in there. I would recommend listening to that. Okay? Jazakallah khair. Give us a shortcut. خير إن شاء الله. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.